I heard a girl describe this as interning for her future self. Like you're grabbing her coffee, you're taking notes, and it like gives me chills. I was like, that is such a cool way to look at it.
What if the way you think about money is the exact thing keeping you from having more of it? Every thought you have about money is either expanding your capacity for wealth or capping it. And most of us are walking around with beliefs that are quietly sabotaging our success. I'm Jillian Minter, and welcome to Quantum Wealth, where we're blending manifestation and mindset with proven business strategy to help you break through income plateaus, dissolve subconscious blocks, and build a soul-aligned business that supports the lifestyle you actually want. If you're an entrepreneur who's tired of trading time for money and ready to quantum leap your income, you're in the right place. This is where woo meets business. Let's go.
Welcome to the Quantum Wealth Podcast. We have a very special guest today, Steph Crowder. I'm so excited to have you, and I will get into the dynamics of our relationship and how I found her. But Steph, I would love if you would just start and introduce yourself to our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be here. So excited. So like you said, I'm Steph Crowder. I am a business and sales coach. I have my own podcast called the Courage and Clarity Podcast, which is really all about balancing the head and the heart of entrepreneurship. So really equal parts mindset and strategy. I run a mastermind program, a year-long program called Sold Out Group Programs, where I teach people how to start, sell out, and scale their group programs across all different kinds of cool topics and industries. So I love the work that I get to do. My background and how I got here, I started out as an early employee at the company Groupon in Chicago. I was 22 years old, making cold calls in a cement warehouse. The week that I started, we made the cover of Forbes magazine for being the fastest growing company in history. It was a truly wild ride. I was very, very bad at sales. I almost got fired. I was put on a performance plan. I called my parents who lived in Atlanta. So I was like, can I please come home? Crying. I was like, I don't want to get fired. My dad was like, you got to figure this out, girl, which I'm very grateful for because I did. And I learned sales and I figured out how to be good at it to the point where I became a top rep. I then was hired as a sales trainer and ultimately the sales training director for North America at Groupon when I was only 26. So I had the opportunity to train just so many people. Every single week with that company, we had 50 new hires. Wow. And a lot of times those folks were double my age. And so they were very skeptical of what I had to say, but I was able to work under some amazing mentors. We developed a sales process and I actually even got to travel to Europe to teach our European branch how we did sales in the United States. So it was an amazing experience. And then I ultimately I started listening to podcasts back in the day and listening to shows like Smart Passive Income with Pat Flynn and hearing these stories of everyday people who are making money on the internet. And I was like, what is this all about? So I decided to try my hand at that. And I became a business coach. And I've been doing that for about 11 years now. It's how I got here.
Amazing. I love it. I think some of my favorite entrepreneurs are people that were like fired or almost fired.
Yes.
And then end up doing their own thing. That's always some of the best stories. So I found you through Claire's podcast, your business bestie, which I didn't know at the time. And I listened to Claire's podcast. I think a friend had sent it to me because I wasn't a regular listener of that. And you were talking about your impossible goal. And I loved it so much. And that's all I'd heard from you was this one podcast episode. And I was like, okay, Steph has got to come on Quantum Wealth. And you're doing a podcast tour. So I reached out and invited you to be here. So tell us a little bit about that impossible goal because I just love it so much.
Yes. And I think our relationship we'll get into is like the perfect example of why we set impossible goals, right? So yes, my impossible goal for this year is I am shooting to make my first million in a 12-month period. So I've done over 7 figures in my business, over time, but I want to push for $1 million in 12 months. And it feels like an impossible goal because up until this point, my best in 12 months is around $400K. And so I'm doubling, almost tripling what has been possible for me in the past. And I think there's so much value in even just shooting for it to see what you're made of. There's so much I could say about having this goal. shooting for it. I'm having to think differently. I'm having to ask different questions. I'm having to really identify who is the $1 million CEO of this company, right? Like I know who I am at the 400K level, but who is Steph Crowder at $1 million? What does her company look like? What does her team look like? What does her daily routine look like? How does she take care of herself? How does she steward her money, right? And that question has been really just guiding me because I fully recognize that I have to start becoming her right now. I can't make the $1 million and then become her. I have to really begin to embody that identity. I heard this, I think it was on TikTok. You know, sometimes we get an education on TikTok when you're scrolling. And I heard a girl describe this as interning for her future self. Like you're grabbing her coffee, you're taking notes, and it like gives me chills. I was like, that is such a cool way to look at it. So I'm really seeing this as the year of me interning for that version of myself that's already there. And I'm already seeing some really cool results in my business. And I'm also so at peace with like, if I hit the goal, that will be amazing. But like, what, am I going to be mad if I hit 750, 800? Absolutely not. Like I'll be happy with any outcome because it's already pushing me beyond what I've done before. So it's been really fun so far and scary to talk about out loud, but I think talking about it in public has been a very important part of the process. When I recorded that episode with Claire, I was like, oh my, what am I doing? Like, it's going to be so embarrassing when I miss, but I don't think I've gotten more feedback on a podcast episode in like a year or more than that episode. I think people really love getting to hear that honest, like how scary that is, that courage that's required, and actually vocalizing what we want before success shows up has really helped me magnetize a community.
Yeah. And it's brought you sales, right? Like that vulnerability and that honesty and that just authenticity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And just being willing, especially with the work that I do as a business coach, like I have to go first. That's what leadership really is. If I'm not willing to go first, then like, how can I ask it of my clients? And so really having the courage to model that. We actually just jumped off a coaching call in a group together, and I'm like, telling every one of my clients to go do these things that scare the crap out of them. I have to be willing to do that myself so I can bring it back to the group.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so good. What I love that you teach about sales and strategy, and also like it's really all mindset. And you say that like at the end of the day, you're like, I'm a mindset coach. Like, yes, I teach all these other things, but it's the mindset piece.
Yeah, it really is, because there's just no, and I'm learning this myself. It's funny that you say that because I'm at a point where I believe down to my bones that I don't need to learn any more about strategy right now. Maybe when I go from 1 million to 10 million, that I'll need a new strategy. But it's not strategy that's going to take me from 400K to 1 million. It is all my beliefs. It is all my thoughts, because that's what drives our actions. That's what drives what kind of energy we're in and how we're showing up, and whether people who are assessing who their business coach is going to be, they can pick up on, is this going to be the person that's going to take me there? And so that has been an incredible realization for me, because we could also talk about this as well. I've been in this for long enough. I have had periods where I didn't focus on mindset and I only focused on strategy. And that's when I quit my business, actually, right? Like really being uncoached on the mindset side of things led me to convince myself that it was a good idea to just go ahead and quit, right? So I know the perils firsthand of what happens when we're not focused on mindset. And I know strategy sells better. Believe me, I know everybody wants the answer. But I've been the person who was only doing strategy, and I didn't have the stamina to be able to hold the success that I was having. And that's what happens when you're not addressing your mindset. I quit at the most successful point in my business, actually, because it was too scary. I was like full body terrified. My nervous system was a mess. I was terrified people were going to start hating me and I was going to break it. And so I broke it before it could hurt me. It's like when you're with a partner and you're like, let me dump you before you can dump me. That's what I did, right? And so I know that that's the danger of not spending time on what's happening between our ears. And so I think it's the most critical thing at this point.
Yeah. It's so gratifying to hear you say that as someone who's a sales expert, a strategy expert, because that's what I teach, right? Like you are my client, the clients that are at 6 figures that want to get to 7. And I always say it's 80% energy. Like this strategy, you know that. You wouldn't be where you are if you didn't know that. It's the mindset that's going to get you there.
And I had a friend who's at a similar level to me say this the other day. She's been really focused a lot on strategy. And she admitted to me, she's like, I think I'm avoiding mindset because that's the harder work. And I was like, that's just such good self-awareness. Like we can get lost in strategy because it's not that. I mean, yeah, you do scary things when you try new strategies, but when you address mindset, a lot of times it is the deeper work. You may have to address issues like self-worth and how you see yourself. It can be the harder work. And it's so funny because I think mindset gets cast aside. It's like, oh, that's the fluffy stuff. And it's like, it's actually the hardest work you will ever do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So talking about the mindset. So after I heard your podcast with Claire, and my podcast is still a baby podcast. Like it's doing really well. We're in the top 5%. Thank you to all my listeners and everyone's written reviews. But I was like, oh my gosh, Steph is amazing. I want her on the podcast, but should I reach out? And I was like, well, what's the worst that could happen? She says no. Her podcast's so much bigger than mine, but that's the mindset piece of like, well, okay, how am I going to get to be the person who has guests like Steph or whoever I want if I don't ask? So I asked you and you said yes right away, which was such good evidence for me of like, you just have to put yourself out there the way you're putting yourself out there with your goal. And then I just started following you and listening to you to prepare for this. And just because I like what you had to say. And then I think like a week later, you were in the middle of a summit. You were in the middle of this big launch. And I didn't start listening to it until like the Sunday night. And your cart was going to close. And I had been in the market for a new coach. I'm a coach who loves a coach. I have a million coaches. I do all the things. And I had taken a break. There's a lot of things going on in my personal life. I needed to take a big break. But I was listening to you and I reached out and was chatting with one of my coach friends who also listens to you. And I was like, I think Steph is like, I actually think it's not about the podcast. I think she was sent to me. I think I was supposed to hire her. And my friend Patty, shout out to Patty, who's going to listen to this, I know, was like, every time I listen to Steph, I'm like, this is who Jillian needs. You have to hire her. So I talked to you the next day, got on a sales call and signed up that week. I moved really fast within listening to your content and deciding like, yep, 8K mastermind, I'm all in. Let's do this.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I'm so happy we're talking about this story because that specific way that you became my client has been a bit of a touchstone for me because when I was talking about this impossible goal on Claire's podcast, I think I may have said on there, I had this idea when I asked, here's the thing, it's all connected. When I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to make $1 million in a year? I have the thought, well, I'm going to have to do all kinds of crazy stuff that I've never done before. Let's throw some ideas out. And one of the ideas my brain came up with one day was, why don't you get on 100 podcasts? And I've been making the joke with my mastermind clients that I'm going to put out there that I want to be on 100 podcasts. And I will say yes to every opportunity. I've been joking that y'all are going to hear me on a podcast about outer space because you never know who's listening. And so it's so funny because even by just putting that goal out there, you and I connected, I've created a new client. How crazy is that? I think so often, especially in the work that I do, people want to know all of the answers of like, how am I going to get from point A to point B? How am I going to get to that $1 million goal? I want to understand the math. And signing you as a client is such a great example of how I could never have reverse engineered that. I could never have known that just by putting this goal out there and saying yes to being on your podcast, it would lead me to my next client. So in my program, we call this launch magic because when you're launching, when you're putting stuff out there, you just can't know where it's going to come from. There's all these like unseen forces that are kind of conspiring to help you. And you have to trust that that's happening in the background.
Absolutely. And the best things that we create, we never knew the how. Like if you think of so many of the amazing things that you've manifested, you're always like, whoa, I would have never figured that out. So you just kind of have to put it out there and trust that the universe is going to do its job, right?
You hear people talking about like taking massive action. That's really what that looks like for me is like, let me go be on 100 podcasts. Like that's massive action. And then you kind of let the results fall into place. And it really is crazy, but it's how it works.
Yeah, definitely. So now when you say your impossible goal out loud, are you feeling better about it or is there still unease in your body?
That's such a great question. And it is feeling easier to talk about. It's like I've ripped the Band-Aid off and it's like, well, everybody already knows. So it's already out there. I hadn't really thought about it. So I'm glad you asked because it doesn't feel as scary as it did. It just kind of feels like my body's integrating it as like this is what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Like this, I think I am stepping into that identity, and I'm very much in the thought of, I don't know if it's going to be this year, but I know that it will be a year. I think I'm very sold on, I will be a person who has $1 million in revenue in 12 months. I don't get to choose the timeline, and I'm not even concerned about the timeline. We're going to push for it this year, but I'm so in belief that I am going to be that person that it really is only a matter of time. And I think that does make it more comfortable to talk about, because I know that one day I will be able to say that, right?
That's that beautiful dance between the attachment and the unattachment of you want it, you know it's yours, and you also know like when it comes isn't really up to you.
Yes, exactly.
So what happens for you and for the clients that you coach too when you don't hit a goal? What do you say to yourself? What are you saying to your clients?
There's so many things I could say. One is, it's a little corny, but I think it's helpful. I always like to say to myself, you're either winning or you're learning. And I tell my clients all the time, I learn pretty much nothing when I'm on top, right? Like when I have a great launch, when things are clicking, it feels amazing, but am I learning? Not really. I mean, I could study like, okay, clearly this is working, and that teaches me what did I do that created the success, but I learn 10 times more when I'm in the trenches of loss, of this isn't working. We thought it was. Let me get in there and snatch some ponytails and figure out how we're going to turn this thing around. Like that's really where the learning is. And so if I miss a goal or things don't go the way that I expect, I always like to have the thought, okay, there's some lesson that is not only going to help me, but typically the things that I have to learn are going to benefit my clients so much, because guess what? My clients are going to miss their goals, right? My clients are going to have launches that don't go the way that they hope. And I think if I were this bulletproof sort of infallible leader who's never had a bad launch, I can't imagine how helpful I would be as their coach, right? It's like, well, what do you know? You never miss, right? So I like to have the thought, well, I'm a human. I'm going to miss a goal. My clients are going to miss their goals too. This is, again, a leadership opportunity for me to be like, how do we respond to that? What do we do? Do we give up? Absolutely not. How do we adjust? And all of those lessons, not only is it helping me teach people about resilience, which is so important, but like I said, I do so much troubleshooting on the strategy side when things aren't working. It's like, okay, let me get into the numbers. What didn't line up? And I'm able to then fix it. And typically when I have to go in and fix something, I have a new lesson that comes out of that. Oh, guys, here's what's working in the market right now. It used to be this isn't working so well. We tried this and that hit. So let me teach you all about that. So paradoxically, the updates that I make, I've told my clients this as well, that any cool new idea I've ever had has never been when things are working. It's always been like, stuff's breaking, we need to fix it. Oh no, we kind of have a problem. Like I don't go around troubleshooting when everything's great, right? Like you solve problems. So through that lens, it's super uncomfortable to miss a goal. It's super uncomfortable when it's not working. But I think we can really see that for the opportunity that it is it's always going to be preparing you for the next level, right?
Absolutely. And I think that it's so important to recognize that the growth happens when we're not at the top, like you're saying. Like that's when we expand, step out of the intern, as you said, and step into the future self. That's how you become that person.
I have a story about this that is, it's been so instructive for me, for any folks out there who are parents who have kids in sports. My daughter is a competitive cheerleader. She's turning 10 and we're in tryout season right now. And the tryout process is like always kind of a whole thing, of course, in any sport. And she's at a point where, if anybody knows anything about cheerleading, there's levels that you get onto certain teams. And we're in the tryout process and she is showing up for level 2, which she's not probably going to make a level 2 team. It's very unlikely. She has the skills, but like from a technique perspective, she's not where she really needs to be to make that team. But we have been coaching on the value of even trying, right? Of even just going to that tryout. Yeah, she's probably going to be told not this year, but we just made a list of like, what are all of the benefits of having a stretch goal? And the answers were things like, the big thing is the back handspring. And like, that's the big skill. And she's like, well, I'll have to practice my back handspring more. I'll get more reps of doing the back handspring, right? And what we came to was like the worst thing that could happen. Like what you said when you approached me, the worst thing that could happen was I say no to being on your podcast. We've talked about for her, the worst thing that can happen is they say, you need to come over here to the level 1 group, right? That's the worst thing. Yeah. But teaching that skill, like emotional resilience is a skill. And I think as a 9-year-old in my household, I love sports because we actually require that our kids play a sport, any sport, to learn the lesson of failure and to lessons that will take, like how many times in her life is she going to go out for something and be told no? I don't want that experience to be happening for the first time when it's like applying for college or something. Right. Yeah. And so it's been so interesting to see that lesson playing out in a totally different context, but it's pretty cool to see what can happen when we put ourselves in the arena of like, it's probably going to be a no, and I'm going to do it anyway.
Absolutely. And I think that it's so important to recognize that the growth happens when we're not at the top, like you're saying. Like love that. That's so good. I wish I had coaching at that age.
Oh, I know.
Right?
Oh,
Can you
gosh.
imagine?
No,
she's gonna...
I literally can't. I think about that all the time. I'm like, listening to her coach herself, I'm like, who are you going to be in your 30s and 40s? I can't even imagine.
I know, right? I wish I found coaching in like by 20 or 30, let alone 9.
Right. Yeah. Can you imagine? Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about your sales background, because I think it's so interesting and so unique that you come from this huge company. I have a lot of thoughts about Groupon. They obviously were so huge and did so much. And when I owned my brick and mortar business, the business had really been built on Groupon, which is so interesting. But we weren't keeping clients, right? They weren't converting. Yeah. So I had lots of feels about that. But I know I worked with a lot of people when I canceled our Groupon, like the sales reps that were calling me and trying to get me on it. And so because I worked with it, I like that really spoke to me and it was interesting to me. And I just feel like Groupon to me screams like hardcore salesperson, very skilled, very talented. So how did you go from working in that corporate environment to being like, I want to do this on my own? I want to teach this for small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, the decision really came from how I wanted the rest of my life to unfold. I had just gotten married a couple years before, and my husband and I knew that we were going to want to have a family. And you have to remember, this was 2014-ish. There was no work from home. That was not really a thing. And it was very rare. I actually tried that. Like what I knew is I was like, I've always been the kind of person. I was talking to somebody recently who was like, you know, I always knew that I'd be a working mom. Like that was just, and I've also talked to people, stay-at-home mom is my dream. And I always felt kind of weird that I was like, I want to do both those things. Like, I don't feel like I'm in one camp. Like I want to work. I love work. I'm a very ambitious person. I can't imagine not working. And what do you mean I'm going to go into an office from 7 to 7? Like I was in this position where I actually was very lucky that there were women above me in like VP positions, but there was only two kinds of women. There was women who strategically chose to have no kids. And then there was women who dad stayed home and she was there from 7 to 8. And I was like, this sucks. This is just not my journey. And so that's really what motivated me was like, can I cut something out for myself where I don't ever have to miss a milestone? I can be there at home with my kids, like even if there's a nanny or whatever, but I could set my own schedule. I could be flexible. And I was like, let me see if I can make this work. So that's really what motivated me. But to your point of the hardcore sales, and again, it's funny, I didn't really realize we'd be talking so much about emotional resilience today, but I feel like that's really what it comes back to is it really is all connected, like our journeys. I think for me, having to pick up the phone and make 100 cold calls a day, and my territory was Miami, where everybody's from the Northeast and they can be tough. I had people swear at me, say they were going to call the police, tell me all kinds of crazy stuff. I had to face that every single day. It was very hard work. And I think that really prepared me for how tough entrepreneurship is. A friend of mine just came onto my podcast recently. She's a board certified OBGYN. She's now a coach. And she was like, building a coaching business is harder than medical school and residency. And that made me feel so validated, right? Like this is tough work. It's amazing work, but it is quite hard. And so I am so happy. I also do resistance training with weights, right? I like to work out. It's like the way that you build muscle is by doing hard things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really think that tough career prepared me for how hard entrepreneurship really is.
Yeah, getting in all those reps. I love that. That's so true. So what do you think is the most common belief that you see coming up around sales with your clients? And I should say, like, Steph is my coach and also like a new coach. I've only been in the program a few weeks, so I may have some thoughts on this, but I would love to know what you think.
I think the number one most like insidious thought that just torpedoes people's sales, and it's the belief that we can really fix to get good at sales really quick, is to go from feeling like by selling something, we are convincing people, we are selfish, we are bothering people, we are being annoying, to seeing selling as a service, right? To see it as I have something that can impact people deeply. The work that I do changes lives, whether you are a dog trainer, whether you are a relationship coach, whether you're a website designer, whatever that work is that you do. I was coaching somebody earlier today who teaches people about interior design. And we were brainstorming all of the ways. Just kind of feeling a little down. She was like, what's the big deal decorating your house? By the end of the conversation, we were talking about that feeling that you get when you stay in a luxury hotel, like a Ritz-Carlton. She teaches people how to make their house feel like that. Like, you're going to tell me that's not life-changing to love your house that much, love the way that it makes you feel. And if you have that in you, you have the ability to help people with that and you don't share it. I actually teach people that not selling is selfish, right? We've convinced ourselves that selling is so gross and convincing. I think it's the other way around, that when you have a gift inside of you, you have something that can benefit people and you don't put it out there and you don't create that in the world. That's the most selfish thing we can do, right? It's like, I always think it's a little bit dramatic of an analogy, but if somebody were dying in the street and you had the medicine in your pocket, you would give it to them 10 times out of 10, right? Yeah. And that's what we do with our work in the world. And so when you can come at it from a place, every time somebody tells me, and it's daily, people are like, I hate sales, I'm bad at sales, I'm just not good at this. I tell them all that's happened is you've made it about yourself. And that's very normal. We are self-oriented beings. You're just human. And you can just say to yourself, oops, I'm making it about me. If you hate selling, you're making it about you and that doesn't feel good, right? All you have to do is flip it into how is this actually about them? You know, we were laughing earlier about how I have been coaching all day today. I will leave my day feeling like a sponge that's been wrung out, right? And I love that feeling. That is me serving, and I wouldn't be here if I didn't have the courage to get out there and sell it, right?
So good. I love that sponge analogy. Okay, so another thing we've been talking about this week that I talk a lot about with my clients is pricing. And you were talking about on our coaching call a little bit about pricing and why you chose your price. And it reminded me a lot about how I chose my price and how I teach people to choose pricing. So I would love for you to just kind of share your philosophy on pricing, because I think it's so good and it echoes a lot of what I say.
So there's a couple of pieces to this. I would say it depends on where somebody is in their journey. If you're newer to business and you are still building the confidence of selling, I like to encourage people. It's like, we got to work with everything we can, like get everything on our side, every tool that we have. And I think price is a tool that we can use to build our confidence. So I like my clients to choose a no-brainer price that they feel like they can almost borderline be like, they're stealing it, right? Because it will take you to a place, you don't stay there forever, but it'll help you have the swagger required to be like, people who buy this are in for such a treat. And you're kind of building that mindset. If you ask yourself to charge $20K out of the gate, and even selling for $2K would make you nervous, you're kind of setting yourself up to like, how are you really going to have your head held high and be like, this is worth every freaking penny. Having that belief is a skill. And so I like to put the training wheels on and have people start at, I believe in charging premium pricing, especially for coaching, like for one-on-one coaching. I really like my clients to charge higher because we need fewer clients to make that math add up. But like, I always ask people, what's a no-brainer price that you could really get behind right now, where if we were sitting down and having a call with somebody and it was time for you to say your price, you're going to say it with confidence, right? That's where I really like people to start in order to just like build that skill set.
Yeah, I love that. And strategically, you've kept yourself at a price that is that price. That's like, it's just so easy. It's a no-brainer. It's quote unquote cheap. So explain that a bit.
Yeah, we were talking about that today on our call as well, that I really think there's a few different ways to look at your pricing. And I've been sharing openly with you and the rest of the clients that I've gone so back and forth on my pricing. So for reference, I think we mentioned it, but just to be sure, my mastermind is $8,000 for the year. And it goes toe to toe with any $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 mastermind. It's very comprehensive. And I have gone back and forth. Okay, it's time to go to 10K at least, like, right, it's time to raise my price. And I've almost done it many times. And something has just kind of kept holding me back. And I've kind of come to a place where the question I've been asking myself is back to the $1 million goal. What if I just believed that that goal was done? And it doesn't matter. I can get there at 8K. I can get there at 10K, 15K. I can choose any price and I still hit my goal. And that has been such a freeing question, because I think sometimes we try to price of like, oh, but how is the math going to add up? And if I don't charge it, and that's not really honoring our true desire. When you say the goal's already done, like I can hit my revenue goal, it's just a matter of math, right? Then, and we did this with you on the call today, which was really fun, we are able to be like, what do I actually want to do? What's actually aligned with my values right now? And I found that when I asked myself that question, I was like, I actually really like my price, and the only reason I was going to change it was because I was afraid that I couldn't hit 1 million. Can I really hit 1 million with 8K? That was the only reason. If I took that off the table and believed, no, we can figure out how to get there at this price, I was like, let's do it. And so that was really fun for me. Now I have other people I've talked to and coached with who are like, when I ask that same question, they're like, no, I want to have a premium price. I want to go on the high end. I want to show myself that I can do it. That's a great reason to choose that price. What we were coaching on today is you're going to have problems either way, right? Like you're going to have a problem. I'm going to have problems at 8K. I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to serve the clients at that level, right? Where if I went to 15K, I'm going to have a different problem. I'm going to have a lot of people who can't afford it. It's no longer accessible. I'd have to solve that problem. And so I think with pricing, it's very grass is greener. I see this all the time with my clients. They're like, if I just drop my price, it'll start selling. You'll hear people come to my calls all the time, be like, I even cut the price in half and it didn't sell. And I'm like, I know, because it's really not about the price. Price does not solve nearly as many problems as we think it does. And so I think price becomes the scapegoat for a lot of other things that we have to fix, like our messaging, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the scapegoat on a sales call. Like, would you say that's the number one objection that people have?
Yeah, absolutely. People hide behind it. One of the things I learned in my sales days at Groupon is people in general, except for sociopaths and psychopaths, people are nice. People are polite. They don't want to be rude. So they will turn you down in the gentlest way possible. The top ones are, I'll think about it and I can't really afford it, right? So they say, I'll think about it because they don't have the heart to say no. People will just avoid saying no. And they'll say, I can't afford it because that tends to be the safest objection, because a lot of people won't push on that. And they're just saying it because, and sometimes it's true, don't get me wrong, but a lot of times what people are saying when they say I can't afford it is I don't know how I would find the money. Or I keep telling this story with this objection of how my family just moved to the home that we're in now. It's 30 years old and it's needed so much work, and not the fun kind, like tens of thousands of dollars for concrete and water and not fun things.
Yeah.
And I will literally have the money in my bank account and it's still not fun. It's not fun to spend it. So even when you have the money, Sometimes it's like never fun to see $8,000, $20,000 leave your bank account. So people will say that objection. And a lot of times it's because there's just other things going on underneath, for sure.
One thing that I always teach my clients is that we don't say we can't afford it, because that can be true. And usually it's that we don't see the value or it's not worth the investment and they don't want to spend that. But when we're saying that, we're creating this thought that I don't have the money when that may not be true. And circumstance
Completely agree. I love the thought, I'm choosing to not do this right now. I'm choosing to forego this investment. I'm choosing to spend my money in another place, because at this point, being in business as long as I have, the things I've seen people do to be able to invest in their business, it's really rarely true that you genuinely can't afford it. There's often a way, and it's your choice if you want to take that. It might be a very uncomfortable path, and it may even be a not so recommended path, like liquidating 401ks or selling your house, but people do it, right? Yeah. I'm not saying that you should, but that is a choice that people could make. Mm-hmm. And so to your point, I think it is so much more empowering to say, I'm choosing to put my money somewhere else right now, like my mortgage, like my kids' college. Perfectly fine decision. But I agree with you. I think the wording on that is actually really important.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Is like, that's powerful. And
yes,
in coaching, we always want to take back our power, right? We have all the power. So now I want to ask you a few quicker questions. What do you think the biggest thing that you see holding entrepreneurs back from selling is?
To only choose one. It's definitely the first thing that comes to mind is what we talked about before, is feeling gross about it, feeling convincing. I think, to go deeper into that in a different direction, I think the number one thing holding people back from selling is not being sold themselves on the value of what they're trying to sell. That is, to go all the way back to the Groupon days, one of the things that helped me become a top rep was believing in the power of the product. When I was failing at it, I was having all these thoughts that we were going to ruin businesses, that it was like snake oil sales. Do you think I sold very much with those thoughts in my brain? Absolutely not. Versus when I started learning how to do the ROI math of how our clients, some of the clients on Groupon, oh my God, cleaned house, like how the math could end up stacking up for people. Then I was able to really believe in the product. And so I think for a lot of people who are struggling to sell, they simply haven't spent the time. We think unconsciously over 10,000 thoughts a day that we're not choosing. The least you can do is choose some thoughts that you can feed to your brain about all of the reasons why somebody should work with you. How could their life change if they were to buy from you? So I think if we spent even just a little bit of time thinking those thoughts on purpose of belief of like why this is great for people, then you can generate feelings of excitement to go sell. It doesn't have to feel like such a drag.
Absolutely. And I think, to go back to the Groupon stuff, as a consumer using Groupon, the thing that I would always see if I used a Groupon was that the business didn't necessarily feel like that they could sell the value, and that the client who would use Groupon would ever pay full price. So I think for me as like the business owner, seeing the businesses, that was the disconnect of they didn't fully believe it. They knew the value, but then they just had decided and told themselves, well, this is a Groupon person. They're not going to pay that.
That's exactly right.
And then
That's exactly
convert.
right.
Okay. So when a client sets a goal, what is the first thing that you want them to tell themselves?
I don't have to know the how. Yeah. I don't have to know the how. I just have to start becoming the person who has reached this goal. And I have to try every idea that my brain offers me. And I'm not going to get there by trying to reverse engineer and calculate every piece of it.
Yeah. Every time you say that stuff, I love it, because you teach and sell strategy.
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
Yes, I love it. So I think a lot of people think sales is like salesy, right? Like we said, and it's about like persuasion. What do you think it's really about?
Consulting. It's really about asking great questions, understanding someone's situation, uncovering their problems, and putting together a compelling plan for how they can get where they want to go. So it's really understanding. We talk a lot in my program about taking people from point A to point B. So I teach people how to do comprehensive sales calls that don't feel crappy, right? That feel really empowering, where we get a good sense of where is somebody right now, where do they most want to go, and what's getting in their way, and really asking good, curious questions about that. We can then put together a plan of like, okay, cool. Now we can just walk you from point A to point B. So it's really not about just convincing somebody to cough up the money. It's about, and it's also not about like forcing a fit and pushing somebody into something. It's really about finding that mutual fit between you of like, here's what you need, here's how I can help.
Yeah. I love the metaphor of walking them there.
Yeah.
I think that's so good. Okay, the version of you who has the $1 million business, what does she feel like?
You know, I love asking that question because sometimes I'll ask it and be like, where am I not letting myself have that right now? That has been so compelling as well for all of us who think like, if I make enough money, if I have the house, if I can fit into the pant size, everything will feel better. Sometimes it can be really helpful to be like, how can I just give that to myself right now? Right? I've really enjoyed asking myself that because sometimes it's like, I'll say to myself, oh, the $1 million version of myself is taking more rest. And I'll be like, well, I can have that now, right? Like, so anyway, that has been a really helpful, that wasn't your question, but I wanted to share that I've been playing with that. But the version of me that's hit the goal, how does she feel? I think she feels really grounded and well supported. I think that has been something I've had to really work on and am still actively working on, because what I've learned, because I mentioned briefly that I did quit my business when I was successful, I felt so alone in it. I felt like I was going to make a mistake and I felt like it was all on me. And that was exhausting. I have no interest in feeling like that again. So I think the $1 million version of myself who has it has a life that's built for it, right? I have more support on the home front with things like meals and childcare. I have more support in the business. So it's okay for me to take a break, right? So I think that's how she really feels, is supported, not frantic, not like chicken with her head cut off, but she's running a well-oiled machine that works.
Yeah. I love the supported. That's a question I'm going to pose to my clients of like, how can you allow yourself to feel more supported? Because a lot of the times that's what my clients are going through. They've just started to hire or they have 1 or 2 people, but they're needing to lean into that support.
Yeah. And I don't think you'll let yourself have more if more means you're exhausted, if more means you're burnt out, if more means you have no time for yourself. Like, why would we want that? So that's a really interesting conundrum where you say you want more, but if more feels bad, we're not actually going to take the actions that get us there.
Yeah. We're going to do everything to stay exactly where we are.
Yep. That one lesson, I think I've been learning that one for years in a row. So I think it takes time to really start accepting that.
Well, we're all doing the work, right? Okay. Do you have a structured morning routine?
I would say that I do. Yeah. For a while, I feel like I've had, it's funny, I've never said this term, but it's like morning routine shame. I feel like I've had more, because I can always think of more that I would like to do. Like I keep wanting to wake up an hour earlier than my kids, but I don't do that. But I do actually have a pretty structured morning routine. When I wake up, it is time to wake my daughter up for school. So I'm not really spending time immediately by myself, but pretty quickly I am getting out the door. I love boot camp classes and I try to go to 7:30 pretty much every day. So I love that time. It's my me time. It's a little bit of a drive. And on my way, I'll be listening to something inspiring, usually a podcast or talking to a business friend on Boxer. I'll do my workout, get my butt kicked. Same thing on the way home, listen to something inspiring or connect with a friend. And then it's usually quick shower, eat something, coffee, and into my day. So I think we could always optimize for more. And it would be nice to sit on my porch and have the coffee. But in this era of my life, I'm choosing the sleep, but I like my morning routine the way it is.
I find that successful entrepreneurs have some kind of routine, whether it's like the structured morning routine, but they all have something.
Yeah, it's like a rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely the like 7-figure CEO version of you, I'm sure, at least for me. And what I see my clients is they have that as well.
I think a lot of that is because like for me with going to the 7:30 boot camp, for example, it's minimizing decisions in my life. Like If I wake up every day and it's like, okay, what time am I working out? And I have to have drama about that decision. I just like that I don't negotiate with myself. It's like in the car, we leave at 7:10, you need to go. And so I think it helps me show up for the success habit that feeds me, but I don't have to keep reopening the decision every single day.
The fewer decisions we have to make like that, the better. So we can save them for the things in our business.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
What is the biggest money mindset shift that you've ever had?
Wow, what a question.
Or the first one that comes to mind.
I think allowing myself to spend a lot of money has been a really big one. I've played with things as part of my identity of flying first class, for example. Recently in November, Claire and I actually went on a retreat together in England, and we flew with the business class lie flat seats. I don't think that's a decision that anyone in my bloodline has ever made. And so telling myself that it's safe to have these incredible experiences and that the money's not all going to run out and that there's so much more available to me and that I don't have to squirrel, keep it, tuck it into the floorboards and things. I really do love the idea that I know a lot of people talk about that money likes to flow. It's very hard to live that, I think, because when money, I think I come from a background where when money comes your way, you want to try to save every penny of it. I try not to do that so much anymore and invest strategically. And I think that has made a really big difference.
Yeah. What do you like to spend money on?
I'm like, what does this make me sound like? I don't really care. I like to spend money on things that make me feel good. Okay, so it's funny, right? I live in Louisville, Kentucky. We just had the Kentucky Derby here. And you look at these racehorses and they're like hundreds of thousands of dollars for the horse, but then also the care of the horse. They take care of the horse as the asset, right? That's like the show pony. And it's like when I started seeing myself as the number one asset in my business, I literally who am I for my clients? How can I help them? How can I create thought leadership or do my work in the world when I'm not treating myself as this ultimate asset? So I really like spending money on helping myself feel great. For example, if I'm going to fly to Europe, I would prefer to get some sleep on the plane. So I think that's my favorite thing to spend money on is making myself feel good, but then also making my people feel good. I like my home to feel nice. I like to pour into other people when I can to just kind of create that safe, comfortable feeling, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's a good one. So what is the best thing you've invested in for your business this year?
Business coaching, business coaching, life coaching. And I know that might be a cliche or trite answer. And people are like, of course you would say that to sell something. That's really not why. For me, I know I mentioned I quit my business. I was very uncoached and it felt like a great idea at the time to quit. And a year later, I was like, oh God, what have I done? Right. And so when I came back to business, I told myself I would never do that to myself again. And I know you mentioned you love coaching for yourself as well. Having either a business or a life coach, sometimes both, to be there to support me and help me see my own brain and see the stuff that my brain is doing. Again, I think it goes back to support. I think of my coaches as part of my team. They're like my board of advisors. They help me be onto myself and call myself on the BS. So I think that's definitely the most important investment I've made is just, having that advisor, those advisors that can really help me understand myself and push myself to grow.
Yeah. Right now, are you working with one-on-one or group coaching or both?
I'm in a mastermind. So I've been in the same mastermind for 3 years. And then I have a one-on-one life coach as well.
Ooh, both. Love it. Awesome. And then my final question that I ask everyone is, what is wealth to you?
Immediately, the word that floats right to the top of my brain is freedom. I think freedom has been my driver since day one with entrepreneurship. I think wealth is a tool. And when you have more resources available to you, you can make more of the choices you really want to make, right? You can go where you want to go. You can live where you want to live. You can support the causes that you want to support in the world. Being well-resourced helps you create freedom for yourself and for others. So I think for me, it's freedom.
Yeah. I would say freedom is the number one answer I get. So
is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that's what everyone craves. Yeah. Love it.
It's what we all really want at the end of the day.
Oh, well, this has been such a treat to have you. Such a good conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. Share with the listeners where they can find you, connect with you.
Thank you. This has been such a blast. You guys can find me. I hang out mostly on Instagram when it comes to social. I'm at Hey Steph Crowder. My website is stephcrowder.com. If a good place to start with me is I have a pretty popular free resource called the 15-minute planner method, where I teach you how to sit down for 15 minutes and plan your whole week. You can go to stephcrowder.com/plan to grab that. And then also my podcast is called The Courage and Clarity Podcast, if you'd like to listen along with me.
Amazing. And we'll have all that linked in the show notes. Well, thank you so much for being here. And
thank you.
Happy manifesting, everyone.
That's a wrap on today's episode. If you're still here, I know you're serious about quantum leaping your income, and that commitment is what separates the dreamers from the doers. Here's what I want you to do next. Pick one insight from today and take action on it. Because here's the thing, transformation happens in the implementation, not just the inspiration. If this episode shifted something for you, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. It helps other ambitious, heart-centered women find the show. And if you're ready to take this work deeper and finally break through that income plateau, I'd love to invite you to book a discovery call with me. Because here's the thing, podcasts give you the what, but coaching gives you the how. It's what takes you from, I know what I should be doing, to, holy shit, I actually did it. Head to the show notes or to jillianminter.com to grab your spot on my calendar. Until next week, keep choosing abundance over scarcity, alignment over hustle, and remember, you're meant for more. You just have to believe it's yours.